Hello everyone, welcome along to Sportsbet TV. Paul Alster here with you once again. As always, looking forward to my weekend tips, and it's great to have you with us. If you're new, of course, joining us for the first time, do press the subscribe button just below this screen and the bell icon, and then you'll be kept in touch with all my bulletins as and when they are released. And if you're new, then you probably won't be aware that I'm not one of the tipsters that puts up all these short price favorites, ones that you could pick by opening any newspaper or website. I very much look for value, and my followers are the type of people that like to take a chance on a horse at big odds, knowing that sometimes it's not going to work out, but other times we could hit the jackpot. And that's happened quite a few times of late, including an 80-1 winner at Cheltenham, a 66-1 winner of one of the big races during the winter, and plenty of others at 20, 18, 16, 12, so on and so forth. We've also had a lot of big prize placed horses as well, and nearly all my horses are recommended each way. Well, I have four selections for you, or selections in four races over this coming weekend. Because of the funeral of Prince Philip, they have moved the races that were scheduled at Newbury on Saturday and the Ayr National fixture to Sunday. So that means that Saturday is actually a little bit thin. But I have found one very, very interesting horse for you over at the Curragh. I'll come to that in just a few moments. But first of all, I must go back to Aintree. I'm afraid I have to do, even though it wasn't a very successful few days for us. Although day one was fine. The two horses that ran both finished placed as far as the place offers that I highlighted were concerned. And I know some of you did each way doubles and made a few bob. But after that, things went rather pear-shaped, I'm afraid. Day two, they all ran poorly. The horse that I was going to mention as a tip, but I expected him to be far too short because I'm always looking for each way prices, was Live, Love, Laugh, who was my only win bet of the last 4 months when just beaten in Ireland the time before. And he put up a remarkable performance, leading all the way at Aintree in the Topham Trophy, jumping like a buck. And the price was just ridiculous. I mean, 15-2. If I'd known he was going to be that price, he was a 4-1 shot when I was tipping him or was looking at him, and 15-2 was huge. Then on National Day, well, this Nagar Oscar in the Stayers Hurdle had every chance to out, just not good enough. And I'm afraid it just looks like he's not quite the force of old. And I don't think I'll be risking too much of my, or your cash for that matter, on him for the foreseeable future. Then we had Fagan, who didn't run any sort of race at all. That was very disappointing. In the Grand National, well, it's always a bit of a lottery, isn't it? Taking Risks, who I put up at 40-1, he was a wholesale gamble. Whether that was down to me or any other tipsters, I don't know, or quite what. I know Simon Holt of the Sporting Live also went for Taking Risks, and anyway, he went off 14-1. But he never took to the fences. He gave himself a bit of a fright at one of the early fences and was always on the back foot after that. I think he pulled up before the 17th. While Talk is Cheap went well for a circuit at big odds. But he just got tired and he wasn't up to it. But it was fantastic to see Rachel Blackmore win, a wonderful result for racing. And I was shocked at the price because I was so sure there would be a huge public gamble with lots of front page headlines about Rachel having a chance to do it. And I suppose that the very sad passing of Prince Philip, which took all the headlines, meant that the stories didn't really feature to the same extent about the National. And she went off a much bigger price than I intended. She was one of the horses that I highlighted, her Mount Minella Times, but in the end I went for the bigger forecast odds. And then the last one I suggested at Aintree was in the bumper, and I said it had to be 5-1 or bigger, the Gossiper. Well, they steamed into this one, the Irish horse. It went off shorter, so there was no bet. And he ran a shocker. Something went wrong and he was pulled up before the home straight. So obviously something went amiss. So as good as Cheltenham was, Aintree was nothing special. Let's put it that way. Let's hope for better luck this weekend. And as I say, Saturday with Newbury and Ayr being moved to Sunday means it's probably one of the poorest days racing in Britain, certainly on a Saturday that I can ever remember. And the feature card is, without a doubt, the racing in Ireland at the Curragh. Now, there are a couple of group races, and I think Broome is going to be very hard to beat in the 1.25 mile Ledge Stakes, but he'll be odds on, and I'm not tipping odds on shots, but he's a horse I think could even win an Eclipse or even a King George later in the season. Now, the race that interests me is on Saturday at the Curragh in the 4:15, a €21,000 mile handicap, and as often at the Curragh, huge field. So 22 runners here, and there are no prices at the time of this bulletin on Friday lunchtime. And I said in the past I wasn't going to try and tip in races where there are no odds, but I don't want to let this one go because I do think it's going to run well, but I'm sure it's going to be a big price. Let me just mention that Joseph O'Brien certainly has set his stall out for this race. He's got 4 runners, all with good chances. One that I very nearly tipped in this is the horse of Dermot Wells called High Time You Won. Now, he's yet to win beyond 7 furlongs, but he's got some decent form. He kept on nicely over 7 furlongs at Naas in late March when 5th of 16 on his seasonal reappearance. And they've put the cheap pieces on for the first time, which is very interesting. And I think he's going to run a big race. But the horse I'm going for here is the horse who won at the biggest odds that I think there have been certainly ever in Britain and Ireland, and that was last season. He popped up at 300 to 1, and I didn't tip him. His name is He Knows No Fear. He's trained by Luke Comer and is the mount of Chris Hayes. Now, it's a fascinating story behind Luke Comer. Those of you that don't know, Luke Comer was a kid that left school. Well, yeah, I'm not sure he even went to school very much by his own admission. I think he sort of disappeared from the school register somewhere at the age of 13 in Ireland. And he became a plasterer, him and his brother. And a very long story short, through hard work and terrific business acumen, they are now both billionaires. They have made a fortune in building and property. And I think Luke lives most of the time now in Monaco, but he sort of flies backwards and forwards on his private jet to his estate in Ireland, where he trains racehorses. He's also owned racehorses for a long time. Now, obviously, with him not being there personally much of the time, he has people there training the horses for him. And it's my understanding that he has some very, very smart people training the horses. As to which horses he buys, I'm not quite sure how he comes to it, but he spent quite a lot of money and hasn't always got a return. But this horse, He Knows No Fear, had 1 run last season on debut and then popped up at 300 to 1. It was an extraordinary victory. He beat a horse called Agitari of Jim Bolger's by a head. And Agitari actually runs in this race on Saturday by coincidence. And it works out that He Knows No Fear is £7 better off despite having beaten Agitari that day. Now, the thing about this horse is that he's at his best on a decent surface. He went on to prove that was no fluke. He finished 8th in a Group 3 at Dundalk. He was 8th and last, actually, in a listed race at Cork, but beaten not much more than 5 lengths. He then went to Germany, where they ran him in a Group 2 over 2 miles for some ridiculous reason, and he didn't like the soft ground at all. He made no show when given a spin at Dundalk in January, all of which is not at all encouraging, I'll be honest with you. It's not something that would suggest he was ever going to come back to what he had produced when winning at Leopardstown last season at those huge odds. But at the Curragh on the 21st of March in the Irish Lincolnshire, sent off at 200 to 1, he finished 7th of 24. And he ran a very, very good race. He was always prominent, very close to the lead, and he kept going really well. It looked to me as if he probably just blew up about the furlong pole, probably lack of a recent run. But he kept going. He was only beaten 2 3/4 lengths. And significantly, it was on softer, heavy ground. And this horse is a better horse on a decent surface, which he will have on Saturday. Now, I'm sure a lot of people will discount him because Luke Comer's strike rate is so dreadful, but they've got Chris Hayes on board, who's a very good jockey, and he rode the horse when he won at big odds. I'm not sure what price he'll be. I suspect he'll be 20, maybe 25 to 1. Let's go with 25 to 1. And they'll probably bet 5 or 6 places for shopping around. He may well go bigger. So as always, remember to bet with a bookmaker that's going to give you the starting price if it proves to be bigger. He could probably drift out to who knows what price. But I do think that if you look beyond the fact that his 300 to 1 victory was such a huge shock, his overall form and his current handicap mark says he should be thereabouts. And I think that he's going to be a sporting bet on Saturday. That's He Knows No Fear in the Curragh 4:15. And then we move on to Sunday. We go first to Ayr. The Scottish champion hurdle is a handicap over 2 miles. It's rather grandly named. It's nowhere near the standard of a champion hurdle in England. There are 10 runners. And the form of this race, in a lot of ways, centres around the county hurdle at Cheltenham, in which Milkwood was third, Anna Bonina was eighth, and Time White was 12th. And these three all meet again. Milkwood's gone up a couple of pounds. Anna Bonina is off the same mark for Irish handler John McConnell, who we're pretty big fans of. And Time White has gone down £2 for Paul Nicholls. Now, a lot of people will focus on Calico, who's very, very interesting for the Skeltons. He was placed on the flat in Liston. He's had 3 runs over hurdles, winning 2 of them, and the only one he got beaten was in the Grade 2 Dovecut hurdle in February at Kempton, beaten by Cape Gentleman, who's a good horse. So Calico, I would expect to go off favourite, and he could have got in off a very fair handicap mark of 139. There's one other horse that I'll mention before giving you my selection. That is Miss Heritage, trained by Lucy Wadham, a super consistent mare, Miss Heritage. She was second in the Imperial Cup behind Langadan. She likes soft ground, and that might be a problem because I think the ground will dry out at Ayr unless the weather takes a turn for the worse. So onto the selection. And that is a horse trained in Scotland called Tommy's Oscar, trained by the veteran Anne Hamilton and ridden by the outstanding conditional rider of the season, Danny McMenamin, who's had 44 winners. He's done terrifically well and he's lost his claim now. Now, Tommy's Oscar is a winner of 4 of his 6 hurdles race, so he's a really progressive young horse. He won at Sedgefield and Newcastle, taking novices races in December. And then he won on his first start in a handicap at Musselburgh in January, bolting in there by 10 lengths off 124. He was second back at Kelso to Bareback Jack, who's a fair sort. And then he was 6th in the Moor Battle hurdle behind the very useful The Shunter. He was a little bit below par that day. These things happen, like everybody. You can have an off day, and he didn't run his best that day, but he really bounced back last time. Back at Kelso, he was hugely impressive to my eyes. He won off the mark of 132 on the 27th of March, really won in good style with plenty in hand. And I was really surprised to see he'd only gone up £6 because I'd marked him down for a £10 to £12 rise for what he did. So I think he's the right side of the handicapper, despite having gone up. And I'm expecting him to run well. Now, Anne Hamilton is an excellent trainer. She doesn't have many horses. Most of them she owns herself, her and her husband. But they've got a great strike rate. And, excuse me, she's currently operating at a 34% strike rate. Her stable star is Nutswell, who's really flown the flag for the yard. But as I say, she's got a really good strike rate. And Danny McMenamin, when he rides for Anne Hamilton, a 35% winning strike rate. So on those two statistics, you'd suggest this should be a 2-to-1 shot. But of course it isn't. It's a handicap and it's a very hot race, really. And there is 8-to-1 each way available at the time of this recording, with 888 and Bet365. That's for the standard 3 places for 10 runners. And I think 8-to-1 each way, Tommy Oscar is a sporting bet. And I think he'll give Scotland a really good chance to possibly win their own champion hurdle. And it would be great to see Anne Hamilton get a big winner in the bag. And then I'm going to move on to the big race of the weekend, which is the postponed Scottish National, put back from Saturday to Sunday. Now, there are going to be 23 runners this year, 4 miles, loads of horses with a chance, but of course, quite a lot of them not really proven at this trip. Now, I Wright is a horse who ran into a place for us when we tipped him at the Cheltenham Festival. He was third there to Vintage Clouds, and they meet again. Vintage Clouds, £7 worth off. But I'm not convinced that either of them will genuinely get home over the 4 miles. I do think I Wright is going to run a big race. Now, Sandy Thompson, who's done us a huge favour a couple of times with Yorkhill, amongst others this season, he saddles a couple in Dingo Dollar, who won at Newcastle last time out, first time for the yard, and the Ferry Master. Alan King has the Classic Chase winner. Now, he will stay. He won over 3 miles 5, called Not a Chance. But there's a bit of a question mark about him because he pulled up last time out. And Dan Skelton, who's carrying all before him, has a talented horse called Old Grange Wood, who hasn't been this far in the past, but shapes as though he may get the trip. Lucinda Russell has been in great form. She had a Grade 1 winner at Aintree, and her Mighty Thunder, who was second in the Midlands National, will stay, and Big River, another one that has run in this before, I believe. Nicky Richards, another top northern trainer, has Chapel Style and Chidswell, and then, of course, the Irish have been carrying all before him. They're streets ahead, really, of the British at the moment, and many of their horses have been coming over here and seemingly are well handicapped. There's only one Irish runner in the race, and that's Mr. Fog Patches for Peter Fahey and Danny Mullins. He was fourth to Michuka at Leopardstown last time, the race in which Michuka caught Laugh, as we know, bolted up in the Topham. So I'm fearful of Mr. Fog Patches. It's a really good renewal, I'd say. When I go through races, because I'm always looking at finding decent prices, I don't look at the odds. I go through the horses and I gradually whittle them down to the horses I think have got a sporting chance. And there are two that I've come up with in this race. Now, the first one, my first choice, I was flabbergasted to see the odds that are on offer after having made the selection. His name is Chef d'Oeuvre, which is French, and I've probably pronounced it badly. He's trained by husband and wife team Sam and Jonathan England, and Jonathan will ride. And this couple, who are based at Guiseley near Leeds, which is my neck of the woods, have been doing very well. They're really shrewd, and they've done well with Chef d'Oeuvre, who's a horse who's won 5 times. The first 3 were for Warren Greatrex. Now, he won for them at Haydock in December 2018. He won the last Fling handicap chase over 3.5 miles, so he stays. But the horse has had setbacks and problems, and he's had 2 breathing surgeries. He missed the 2019-20 season, but he's come back well this year. He won over the extended 3.5 miles at Haydock last time out, staying on to get up in the very last stride to beat Destiny Royale off 124. So the horse, I'm pretty sure he's going to stay. And while a lot of his wins have been with soft ground, very interesting I found to read that Jonathan England, who trains and rides the horse, is absolutely convinced the horse will be better on a decent surface and will stay the 4-mile trip of the Scottish National. Now, he's £2 out of the handicap, despite having gone up £3 for his Haydock win, but I don't think that should be a huge issue. And the odds on offer for a horse who I think will stay, is in form, seems to have his breathing right. 66 to 1 is available each way at the time of this recording for 6 places with Betfair, Sportsbook and Paddy Power. And I think that is a tremendously sporting bet at very big odds. And I think he'll run well. If I was making the book, he'd be a 25's chance, no more than that, because I think that win at Haydock was better than people have given it credit for. But just as a saver, as it happens, a much shorter priced horse, I think, is worth having on your side as well. If you find the prospect of backing a horse that's 66 to 1 a bit difficult to handle. And the horse is called Soldier of Love. He's my second selection in this race, trained by the champion trainer, Paul Nicholls, and the Mount of Sean Bowen. He's a horse who has won 4 from 8 over fences, and he's still a novice. Now, he beat Cool Cody at Newton Abbot in September, and that horse went on to win a red-hot Cheltenham handicap in the autumn. He was then second to Galvin at Cheltenham in October, and that one went on to win the National Hunt Chase at Cheltenham Festival last month. His only other run since then was in November at Cheltenham when he pulled up on soft ground. He hates soft ground. So they've obviously saved this horse, Soldier of Love, for a spring campaign. And I would see him running in this and then probably going to Sandown for the big 3-mile, 5-furlong handicap chase that ends the season. And I think he's going to run a massive race, Soldier of Love. He's the biggest danger for me to Chef d'Oeuvre. The only question mark about him is handling the big field of handicappers with his relative lack of experience as a novice. But novices have done very well in this race over the years. And 10 to 1 is available each way at the time of this recording, 5 places with bet 365. So it's Soldier of Love at 10 to 1 each way. And for 6 places, 66 to 1 each way, Chef d'Oeuvre, both of them at air in the 3:35 on Sunday, the Scottish National. Now, I've got just one other selection, which I'll give you very quickly, and that's at Newbury on Sunday, where there's some very good racing, including the Greenham, of course, which I couldn't make head or tail of, really. I just couldn't get an angle on it. So the one race that interests me is the Spring Cup. It's over the straight mile, 18 runners, and there's loads of what I call lurkers, horses that maybe last season have shown a certain amount of ability, but always look as if they were going to be better this year. And amongst them is a horse of Roger Varian's called Troll Peninsula, who is very interesting. And Brian Meehan has one as well called Raceday. Another one that is more exposed and having already run well this season is a horse that finished 4th in the Lincoln, Dania, and it's on the same mark, so I could see that one running well. But my selection in the race is called Gin Palace. Gin Palace for Eve Johnson Horton, and Georgia Doby, the apprentice rider, claims a valuable £5. Now, Gin Palace is 5 from 15 on turf. He's a horse who needs decent ground, which he almost certainly will get at Newbury on Sunday. Now, he likes this track. He won over the course and distance on his first attempt here in August 2019 off 79. And then he won first time out last season over the course and distance again in June off a mark of 83. That leaves him 2 from 2 at Newbury and both over this trip. He won at Newmarket a couple of weeks after that June success last year off a mark of 87, and Georgia Doby was on board that day, so she obviously gets on well with the horse, and he went on to be beaten just a neck in a hot handicap at Sandown off 90. So I think the thing about this horse is that he seems to go well in a pretty big field and over a straight course where he can gradually build up his speed and momentum. And assuming that Georgia has him in the right place at the right time, I think he's going to run a good race. And with 5 places on offer, with Genting Bet, I'm sure there'll be others as well, but that's just at the time of this recording. I see that Paddy Power and Betfair and Sporting Index have also gone 20 to 1, but I'm uncertain as to how many places they're paying. It's obviously at least 4, but it was unclear on their sites. 20 to 1 each way is the odds for Gin Palace. And I think for a course who's never been beaten over course and distance, I think the horse should go very well indeed. And he's the last of my 4 selections over this weekend. So that wraps it up for this particular bulletin. And we're hoping for better luck than we had at Aintree. Similar luck to Cheltenham would be very nice. And let's hope they all give us a good shout, and that over the course of the weekend, we have something to get excited about. Remember, of course, if it doesn't happen this weekend, it's going to happen at some point pretty close, because we're always throwing in big price winners. And that's what keeps the books balanced and keeps us ahead of the game, showing a very good level stakes profit. So that's it for me today. Remember, if you haven't already done so, press the subscribe button, and I'll look forward to speaking to you again next time. Bye-bye for now.